A U.S. fighter jet shoots down a Chinese balloon, and Antony Blinken postpones a planned visit to Beijing. Former Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf dies in Dubai at the age of 79. And Chief Executive John Lee in Saudi Arabia on the first leg of a Middle East tour. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The U.S. military has shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon off the Carolina coast after it crossed sensitive military sites in various parts of North America. U.S. President Joe Biden wanted the balloon downed on Wednesday, but military officials said shooting it over land from 60,000 feet would pose a risk to people on the ground. Beijing insisted it was an accident involving a civilian airship and threatened to respond, saying it had the right to take further action.
The drama started on Saturday as the U.S. grounded flights at South Carolina's Wilmington, Myrtle Beach and Charleston airports. Soon afterwards, an F-22 fighter jet took off from Langley Air Force Base in Virginia.
I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was as it got over water outside within the 12-mile limit. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it.
In light of China's unacceptable action, I am postponing my planned travel this weekend to China.
The appearance of the balloon has dealt a serious blow to Sino-American relations, with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken canceling a weekend visit to Beijing aimed at easing tensions between the two countries. Blinken said he told the director of the Chinese Communist Party's Central Foreign Affairs Office, Wang Yi, in a phone call that it was an irresponsible act that was detrimental to their planned talks. Beijing, which had expressed regret over the balloon breaching U.S. airspace, played down Blinken's cancellation and criticized Washington for shooting it down. A Chinese Foreign Ministry statement said China deplores the U.S. attack, accusing the Americans of overreacting and warning China reserves the right to make further responses if necessary. One analyst says the U.S. may have benefited from having a close-up view of the Chinese balloon.
The U.S. got a front row seat to China's doing to the U.S. as far as intelligence gathering is concerned. So I think from a public perspective and public opinion point of view, it's tremendously damaging to the U.S.-China relationship because it showed the extent of China's spying program and what they're willing to do to gather intelligence from the United States.
Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Former Pakistan President Pervez Musharraf has died following a long illness at a hospital in Dubai at the age of 79. Musharraf, who was pushed out of power in 2008, had spent years in self-imposed exile. His death was announced by the military and the country's mission in the United Arab Emirates. Matthew Bray with more.
General Pervez Musharraf died in Dubai from what was thought to be myeloma, the bone marrow cancer. Musharraf had been living in Dubai to avoid criminal charges, despite attempting a political comeback in 2012. The former Special Forces commando came to power after a 1999 bloodless coup against Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Born in New Delhi in 1943, Musharraf was the middle son of a diplomat. He entered the Pakistan Army at 18 and made his career there. As Islamabad fought 3 wars against India, he launched his own attempt to seize territory in disputed Kashmir before deposing Sharif. Yet, as ruler, Musharraf nearly reached a deal with India on Kashmir, according to US diplomats at the time. But it would be Afghanistan that would draw US attention and dominate Musharraf's life 2 years in. In 2001, after the September 11th attacks, then US Secretary of State Colin Powell gave Pakistan an ultimatum on the fight against Osama bin Laden and his al-Qaeda militant group. Musharraf said another American official had threatened to bomb Pakistan back to the Stone Age if they chose not to support the fight against terrorism.
Let me right away say that Pakistan has taken a considered decision to be a part of the coalition, to be with the United States, to fight terrorism in all its forms, wherever it exists.
Neither side believes the other lived up to expectations on that deal. An attack on India's parliament in 2001 was blamed on Pakistan-based Kashmiri militants. Tensions were off the charts and 1 million troops were mobilised on both sides of the border. Musharraf extended his rule for 5 more years in 2002 in a controversial referendum and banned Sharif and former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto from power. He also survived 2 al-Qaeda-inspired assassination attempts in Rawalpindi in 2003 with low-ranking Army and Air Force personnel implicated. He ordered the raid on the Red Mosque in Islamabad in 2007, which had become a sanctuary for militants. 100 people were killed and it damaged the general's reputation with ordinary citizens. Musharraf faced a major crisis after Bhutto was assassinated in December that year at a campaign rally. The public suspected he had a role in the killing, which he denied. The Pakistani Taliban were blamed. Musharraf resigned as president in 2008 after ruling coalition officials threatened to have him impeached for imposing emergency rule and firing judges. He was arrested in 2012, put under house arrest and faced treason charges among a host of others. But in 2016 he was allowed to leave for Dubai for medical treatment, where he remained after facing a later overturned death sentence. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Back locally, the full resumption of cross-border travel with the mainland will take place tomorrow and final preparations are underway. The Lo Wu Control Point and the Lok Ma Chau Huanggang Control Point are set to be reopened. The Heng Yun Wai Liantang Control Point will also be opened for the first time. Booths and barricades have been set up outside the Lo Wu Control Point in Shenzhen, which used to have the heaviest traffic among border crossings between Hong Kong and the mainland before the pandemic. Some workers were putting up festive decorations like lanterns and flowers to welcome visitors. Starting Monday, the quota for cross-border travel will be dropped and no more nucleic acid tests for those who have not been to overseas places or Taiwan in the past 7 days. This woman said she's very excited and believes the arrangement will be smooth tomorrow. This woman is glad that she no longer has to get tested before crossing the border. But to enter the mainland, one must have completed the health declaration beforehand and get a black QR code to cross the other side. Customs officers are preparing for the resumption of services at the Joint Inspection Building. Many shops in the building remain closed as operators reportedly do not have enough time to get everything ready. Over at the Huanggang Control Point in Shenzhen, the old port building has been demolished, while the new one, which will be using the co-location plan, is still under construction. The immigration process will be the same as that of Lo Wu. Visitors will cross the checkpoint after having their health declarations examined. Starting tomorrow, the Heng Yun Wai Liantang Control Point will be opened from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. 3 bus routes and 1 minibus route will be running. 2 extra bus routes will run on the weekends and public holidays. Quarantine-free cross-border travel between Hong Kong and the mainland will resume tomorrow, with all travel restrictions being lifted. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung said it is difficult to estimate when the number of travellers can return to pre-pandemic levels. Christy Khan reports.
Prior to the full reopening of the border tomorrow, shops have been seen making final preparations for the resumption of business. Most of them are pharmacies. This mainland tourist says she will go to Hong Kong to shop for necessities at least once a week after the border reopens. Speaking on a TVB program, Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung said the Hello Hong Kong campaign will help raise the profile of Hong Kong internationally.
See you in Hong Kong.
I think by introducing Hong Kong again on the international tourist map and also showcasing our spectacular cultural scene as well as the major events, we will be able to showcase Hong Kong's special position as an East meets West international cultural exchange hub.
However, Yuan noted it is difficult to estimate how many travelers will visit Hong Kong in the short term, despite the reopening of the mainland border as well as the launch of the Hello Hong Kong campaign. He added that it took around a year for other regions to return to pre-pandemic levels after they eased most of their travel restrictions. Meanwhile, speaking on a radio program today, Chief Executive Officer of the Airports Authority, Fred Lam, said he believes it may take around 2 years for the city to be back to pre-pandemic levels.
At the moment, our daily passenger traffic is around 80,000, which is around 40% of our pre-pandemic level. We expect if we would reach around 80% by the end of this year, similar to other hub airports around the world.
Lam also said he expects the free flight tickets to help bring around 1.5 million travelers to Hong Kong.
So on that basis, that would account for about 10% of the traffic volume in the next 6 months. So from that point, I think it would be a big help to the airline industry.
He added that the airline companies will be able to cope with additional traffic flow brought about by the 500,000 free air tickets. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee has arrived in Saudi Arabia on the first leg of a Middle East tour. The CE stressed he will strive for the best economic opportunities on the trip and will attempt to convince petroleum giant Saudi Aramco to list in Hong Kong. Timothy Lee reports.
After a more than 10-hour flight, Chief Executive John Lee and his delegation made their way to a hotel in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, at around 3 a.m. Lee said he was greeted at the airport by Saudi Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Investment, Badr al-Badr. The CE said his visit to the oil-rich kingdom is on a tight schedule and noted on a blog that an investment agreement has already been initiated during his meeting with members of the Ministry of Investment this morning. He added that he hopes to use the opportunity of his visit to further promote Hong Kong and secure the city's place as a conduit in the Belt and Road Initiative between Riyadh and Beijing. A vital part of Lee's tour is his meeting with key individuals of Saudi oil giant Saudi Aramco, with the HKX having earlier invited the oil giant to list in the city. Lee said he wanted to portray Hong Kong as a place of opportunity and a global financial hub to key figures at Aramco. In recent years, Riyadh authorities have tried to diversify the Saudi economy, particularly through the ongoing construction of planned smart city Neom, and Hong Kong is one of Saudi Arabia's targets for investment in the mega project. Located in the arid northwestern desert province of Tabuk, the planned future city is part of the kingdom's Saudi Vision 2030 development program. The city is to be entirely powered by renewable energy sources and will be built in a linear urban formation that could house up to 9 million residents. But while the futuristic green project aims to project a softer and more secular image for one of the world's strictest Islamic nations, Deputy Secretary General of the One Country, Two Systems Youth Forum, Kaman Fung, noted that Riyadh may face challenges when synthesizing modernization with its religious customs. Some scholars believe that the kingdom may struggle with becoming a market-oriented economy, as it remains an absolute monarchy and continues to be involved in several geopolitical conflicts in the region. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Still ahead on tonight's news. A blackout in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa amid continued Russian shelling. A search for missing fishermen after their boat capsized off southwestern South Korea. Welcome back to TVB News. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned of an escalation of fighting in the east of the country as Moscow and Kyiv traded almost 200 prisoners of war. Meanwhile, a fire broke out at an overloaded electrical substation in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa on Saturday amid continued Russian shelling, leaving some 500,000 people without power. Daniel Rell tells us more.
During his nightly video address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the situation on the front line in the east was getting tougher and Russia was throwing more and more troops into battle. This comes as Luhansk region governor Serhiy Haidai said Ukrainian forces remained in control of the village of Bilohorivka, adding that the situation there is tense but under control. Yermak also said the bodies of British volunteer aid workers Andrew Bagshaw and Chris Parry had been sent back to Ukraine. Parry's family had previously stated that he and Bagshaw were killed during an attempted humanitarian evacuation in eastern Ukraine in January. The Russian Defense Ministry said 63 Russian prisoners of war had been freed, including sensitive category individuals. A fire broke out at an overloaded electrical substation in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa on Saturday. The CEO of the Ukrainian state grid operator, Volodymyr Kudrytsky, said critical equipment that had already been damaged several times by Russian missile strikes burst into flames when it could no longer withstand the load. He said any further Russian missile or drone attacks could make the situation even worse. The fire left nearly 500,000 people without power. Ukrainian officials warned that repairs could take weeks. The Ukrainian Energy Ministry is now scrambling every available high-power generator in its nationwide inventory with the aim of delivering them to Odessa within a day. Kyiv also said it would appeal to Turkey for help. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
Sri Lanka marked its 75th independence anniversary on Saturday, but many citizens were in no mood to celebrate a nation that is bankrupt and still mired in an economic crisis. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe said in a national address that the country has reached the point of destruction, but he raised hopes of a $2.9 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund. The island nation is suffering a severe shortage of US dollars, steep inflation, and a lack of basic items such as fuel and medicine, as well as regular power cuts. Many groups boycotted the celebrations while activists expressed anger at what they see as a waste of money. Massive protests last year forced Wickremesinghe's predecessor Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee the country and resign. In South Korea, more than 30 Coast Guard vessels and 8 aircraft are searching waters off the country's southwestern coast for 9 missing fishermen after their boat capsized late yesterday. 3 crew members were rescued by a nearby commercial vessel following the accident off the port city of Mokpo near Daibichi Island. Survivors said the fishing boat's engine room was quickly filled with water before the 24-ton vessel capsized. Local authorities are planning to salvage the boat. 7 of the missing individuals are South Korean nationals and the other 2 are foreigners. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has called on officials to mobilize all available resources to widen the search and to provide support to the families of the missing fishermen. Back locally, 3 men were arrested for criminal damage and theft after causing damage to a newly opened cafe in Taihang. The incident occurred on Friday at around 8 p.m. 3 men of South Asian descent charged into the cafe with hammers and trashed various items in the shop, including a fridge, a coffee machine, and a number of plates. The damage amounted to around $140,000. Authorities said one of the shopkeepers filmed the entire incident using a cell phone. The phone was snatched by one of the perpetrators. The 3 men then got into a car and escaped. They were tracked down by police and arrested on the following day. A 50-year-old expatriate fainted after working out at a gym in Central. He was later certified dead in hospital. The fitness center is located in Kinwick Center on Hollywood Road. At around noon today, the Swiss national fell into a coma after using the exercise bike. Gym staff called the police. The man was rushed to hospital where he was certified dead. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.